Why does choosing yourself feel like betrayal, even when staying feels deadly? Close your eyes. Imagine pulling your energy back, and the room grows quiet, empty, honest. Buddhist teachings reveal a hidden truth. Suffering begins when we cling to what is leaving. Choosing yourself, when no one else does, demands courage. It shows how to detach. Stop being nice to survive. Build your self-worth. Find yourself, love yourself, and stand firm without guilt. Buddhism never taught self-erasure, it taught clarity. Freedom begins where begging ends. Before we begin, subscribe to Deep Wisdom, where every video is a doorway to calm, clarity, and timeless Buddhist insight you won't find anywhere else. Who disappears when you stop chasing? Stay until the end for a bonus lesson. 1. Choose yourself above all else. There comes a moment when the pain is no longer loud, just constant. When staying feels familiar, but your spirit feels thin, stretched, almost transparent. You keep showing up, keep adjusting, keep hoping someone will finally choose you. Yet quietly, something within you is fading. Tell me, why does choosing yourself feel selfish when staying feels like slow self-erasure? This is where suffering truly begins. Not when others leave, but when you abandon yourself to keep them. The mind was trained early to survive through approval, not through truth. You learned that love must be earned, that belonging requires shrinking, that peace comes from being agreeable. So when you finally turn inward and choose yourself, it feels wrong. Not because it is wrong, but because you were conditioned to disappear. When you abandon yourself, the world follows. This is not a punishment. It is a mirror. The moment you stop standing with yourself, life simply reflects that choice back to you. Like a lamp trying to light every room until its own flame goes out, you give and give, until there is nothing left but exhaustion disguised as loyalty. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that suffering is born from attachment, not only to people, but to the image of who we think we must be to be loved. You stay because leaving threatens your identity. You endure because letting go would force you to meet yourself honestly. But peace has never lived in self-betrayal. It lives in alignment. Look closely at your life right now. Where have you been loyal to others at your own expense? Where did you silence your truth to keep the peace? And ask yourself, what part of you has been waiting patiently to be chosen, not by the world, but by you? Sit quietly and place one hand on your chest. Feel the steady presence that never left, even when others did. This presence does not beg, it does not chase, it waits. Choosing yourself is not a dramatic exit, it is a quiet return. It is saying, I will no longer negotiate my worth. It is walking away, not in anger, but in clarity. Not to punish anyone, but to protect your life force. Here is the turning point most people miss. Letting go does not happen after you feel strong. Strength comes after you choose yourself. The moment you stop begging to be chosen, life finally chooses you. And the moment you stand in self-loyalty, suffering begins to loosen its grip. So ask yourself one final question. What would change if you chose yourself today without apology? Then breathe and take responsibility for building a strong, disciplined mind, rooted in calm, guided by truth, and unshaken by the need for approval. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "My self-worth attracts everything." 2. Why people stop respecting you. The moment you notice people listening less, valuing you less, treating your presence as optional, something inside you tightens. You wonder how this happened. You gave more time, more patience, more understanding. And yet, the more you offered, the lighter you seemed to become in their eyes. Why do people value you less the more you give? The answer is uncomfortable, but freeing. Respect dissolves where boundaries disappear. When you give without grounding, when you say yes while your body whispers no, you teach others how to treat you. Not through words, but through energy. Neediness repels because it leaks uncertainty. Groundedness attracts because it carries weight. Respect follows self-respect, not sacrifice. This is not cruelty. It is nature. Think of the sun. It does not chase planets, explain its worth, or apologize for its heat. It stays where it is, steady, unmoving. And because of that, everything else moves around it. Gravity is not created by effort. It is created by presence. In Buddhist wisdom, suffering grows when the self is diluted. When you abandon your center to keep harmony, harmony collapses anyway. You begin to feel invisible, not because others are blind, but because you have stepped out of yourself. And the world can only meet you where you stand. Look honestly at your life. Where have you taught others to overlook you by overextending? Where did you reward disrespect with more access? Each time you stayed silent to avoid discomfort, you traded short-term peace for long-term erosion. This is how resentment is born, not from others, but from self-betrayal. Stand tall in your body. Feel your spine lengthen as you reclaim inner space. Notice what happens when you imagine saying no without explanation. The breath deepens, the chest opens, the nervous system exhales. Boundaries are not walls, they are doors you choose when to open. And the body always knows when a boundary is true. How does your body feel when you say no? Here is the reversal most never see. People do not respect you because you give more. They respect you when you give from fullness, not fear. When you stop negotiating your worth for belonging. When your presence says, I am whole, with or without approval. This is the quiet turning point. The moment you stop proving, chasing, explaining, something shifts. Your words carry weight again. Your absence is felt. Your yes becomes meaningful because your no exists. And slowly, almost invisibly, respect returns, not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. So ask yourself gently, what boundary have I been afraid to set? Then choose yourself, not with anger, but with calm authority. This is how you build a strong, disciplined mind, calm, centered, unavailable to misuse, and finally, at peace with its own gravity. 3. The hidden ego behind being too nice. There is a quiet exhaustion that comes from being too nice. Not the peace of kindness, but the fatigue of performance. You smile when you want to speak. You agree when something in you tightens, and you call it goodness. But sit with this question honestly. What if your kindness was never selfless, but survival? Often, excessive niceness is fear wearing a moral mask. It is not generosity, it is bargaining. You give more so you won't be left. You stay agreeable so you won't be rejected. Somewhere along the way, kindness stopped being an offering and became a shield. This is how the ego hides, soft, polite, and desperate to be approved. True compassion does not beg to be seen. When compassion is real, it is rooted in wholeness. When it is driven by fear, it leaks. Like pouring water into a cracked bowl, hoping it will finally stay, you keep overgiving, wondering why you still feel empty. The problem is not the water. It is the crack created by self-abandonment. Buddhist wisdom teaches that suffering deepens when intention is unclear. When your actions are guided by fear of rejection, even good deeds create tension. You begin to resent the very people you help. You feel unseen, unappreciated. And then you blame yourself for feeling that way, tightening the knot even more. Pause and look inward. Who are you trying to convince by being good? Is it them, or the younger part of you that learned love must be earned through compliance? And ask gently, what do you fear would happen if you stopped overgiving? Would someone leave, or would you finally meet yourself? Breathe in deeply. On the exhale, release the need to be liked. Notice how the body responds when you imagine choosing honesty over niceness. The shoulders drop, the jaw softens. Truth does not require effort, only fear does. Niceness drains because it is an act. Honesty heals because it is alignment. Here is the hidden turning point. Kindness without self-respect is not virtue. It is avoidance. It avoids conflict. It avoids discomfort. It avoids the courage of being real. But when you replace niceness with truth, something unexpected happens. Your words may be fewer, but they carry weight. Your presence becomes steady, not performative. So ask yourself, where can I replace niceness with honesty today? Not to hurt, not to dominate, but to stand in clarity. This is how choosing yourself begins. Not with withdrawal, but with truth. And when fear no longer drives your goodness, kindness becomes clean, grounded, and free. No longer a plea for love, but an expression of peace. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "My self-worth attracts everything." 4. The pain is not loss, it is withdrawal. The pain does not arrive when someone leaves. It arrives when you finally stop reaching. When the messages go unanswered, you tell yourself it is loss. But look closer. Why does letting go hurt more than being neglected? If absence was the wound, you would have felt it long ago. What you are feeling now is something deeper. The truth is quieter and sharper. The pain is not love leaving, it is dependency dissolving. Attachment behaves like an addiction. It promises comfort, identity, and safety. When it is removed, the nervous system panics. The mind calls this grief, but often it is withdrawal. Pain is the echo of attachment leaving the body. Buddhist wisdom teaches that suffering arises not from impermanence, but from resisting it. You were already lonely while holding on. You were already unseen. Yet when you detach, the ache intensifies. Not because you lost something precious, but because the illusion finally broke. Like a river pulling back from dry land, the retreat exposes cracks that were always there. You see how much you poured, how little returned, how long you survived on hope instead of truth. Detachment does not create emptiness. It reveals where emptiness was being ignored. Sit with this question honestly. Are you grieving the person or the role you played for them? The listener, the fixer, the one who stayed no matter what. When that role dissolves, the ego trembles. It no longer knows who it is without being needed. Imagine cutting a thin thread from your chest to someone else. Notice the ache, then the relief. This is the turning point few are prepared for. The pain peaks just before freedom. The body resists because it learned to regulate itself through attachment. The mind resists because it fears the unknown. But beyond this discomfort is space, breath, stillness. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I detach? Will I be alone, or will I finally hear my own voice? Withdrawal always lies. It tells you that returning will ease the pain, but returning only restarts the cycle. Staying present allows the wave to pass. Here is the deeper teaching. This pain is not punishment. It is recalibration. Your system is learning how to stand without leaning, how to be whole without being held together by another. This ache is not breaking you, it is teaching you freedom. So do not rush to numb it. Sit with it, breathe through it. Let the river pull back. What remains after attachment fades is not emptiness, but truth. And in that truth, choosing yourself stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like coming home. 5. Detachment is not coldness. Detachment often scares the heart before it calms it. You hear the word and imagine walls, distance, coldness. You wonder, if I detach, will I become heartless? This fear keeps many people trapped in suffering far longer than necessary. But detachment was never the absence of love. It was always the absence of illusion. Let go, not because you don't care, but because you finally do. When attachment fades, love does not disappear. What disappears is the demand, the pressure, the silent contract that says, stay the same, choose me, never change. Detachment removes the grip, not the care. Think of holding a bird in your hands. If you squeeze, you call it protection, but the bird suffocates. If you open your hands completely, you call it freedom, but it may fly. True care lives in the middle, steady, present, unafraid. Love becomes peaceful when it no longer needs to control outcomes. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that clinging is rooted in fear, not devotion. Attachment says, I need you to feel whole. Detachment says, I am whole and I choose to share. One drains the nervous system, the other settles it. One creates anxiety, the other creates trust. Picture someone you love standing freely before you. No chains, no pulling, only presence. Notice how the body responds to this image. The chest softens, the breath slows. This is what love feels like when it is not bargaining. You are no longer guarding against loss because you are no longer built on possession. Peace enters not because you stopped loving, but because love stopped being fearful. Ask yourself quietly, can I love without controlling outcomes? Where have I mistaken attachment for intimacy? Many relationships collapse under the weight of expectations disguised as care. When you detach, you stop monitoring, testing, and proving. You begin to listen. You begin to see clearly. Here is the hidden shift. Detachment does not make you distant. It makes you available. Available to truth. Available to presence. Available to leave when love turns into self-erasure. This is not coldness. This is maturity of the heart. What would peaceful love feel like in your body? Not the rush, not the anxiety, but the calm certainty that you are enough, whether someone stays or goes. This is the love that does not beg, chase, or cling. It rests, it trusts, it allows. And in that allowing, something profound happens. Relationships either soften into honesty or fall away without drama. You no longer lose yourself trying to hold on. You remain grounded, warm, awake, choosing yourself while still loving deeply and finally, freely. 6. Stop explaining yourself to be chosen. There is a moment when you realize the explaining never ends. You clarify your intentions. You defend your choices. You soften your truth so it will be easier to accept. And still, you are misunderstood. Sit with this gently. Why does explaining never bring the validation you seek? Because truth does not argue. When you explain yourself again and again, it is not clarity you are offering, it is doubt. Each justification quietly says, I am not sure if my truth is enough. And in that moment, you step away from your own knowing. Those who see you do not need explanations. The ones who are aligned with you feel your truth without words. The ones committed to misunderstanding, you will use every explanation as more material to question you. Like shouting at the ocean to prove it is deep, the effort is exhausting and unnecessary. Buddhist wisdom teaches that dignity returns when the mind becomes still. Speech born from fear multiplies suffering. Silence born from clarity dissolves it. This does not mean suppressing your voice. It means knowing when your truth stands on its own. Ask yourself honestly, who am I trying to convince? Is it them, or the part of me that still fears being misjudged, rejected, or left? The need to explain is often the echo of old conditioning. If they understand me, they will choose me. But being chosen at the cost of self-respect is not belonging. It is surrender. Close your mouth gently. Let silence speak for your worth. Notice what happens inside when you stop defending. The body steadies. The breath deepens. You feel taller without lifting your voice. Silence does not mean weakness. It means you trust your ground. Here is the spiritual reversal. The more you explain, the more power you hand away. You place your worth in someone else's understanding. But truth does not require agreement to exist. It simply is. When you stop over-justifying, you return home to yourself. What truth have you been over-explaining lately? And what happens if, just once, you stay silent instead? Watch how the world responds when you no longer chase recognition. Some people may drift, others may lean in, but you remain intact. This is the turning point of self-loyalty. You stop auditioning for acceptance. You stop translating your soul into something easier to swallow. You speak when it matters. You rest when it does not. And in that restraint, dignity quietly rebuilds itself. Choosing yourself sometimes looks like saying nothing at all, not because you have nothing to say, but because you finally know who you are. Calm, centered, unavailable for misunderstanding that requires self-erasure. And in that silence, something profound settles. Peace no longer needs permission. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "My self-worth attracts everything." 7. When you stop begging, power returns. At some point, you feel it, the quiet sense that your power is missing. Not taken from you, but somehow misplaced. You look back and wonder, where did my power go? It did not vanish, it leaked, slowly, into chasing, pleasing, explaining, and waiting to be chosen. Power is not something you acquire. It is something you stop giving away. Each time you begged for attention, softened your truth to stay connected, or waited for permission to be yourself, your energy drifted outward, and the body felt it. Fatigue, anxiety, restlessness. These are signs of scattered power. Power returns the moment you stop asking for permission. This is not dominance, it is alignment. When you stop bending to be accepted, something ancient in you straightens. You no longer need to convince. You no longer need to chase. You begin to stand. Buddhist wisdom points to this again and again. Suffering ends when grasping ends. Begging is grasping in emotional form. It reaches outward, hoping to fill an inner lack. But the lack was never real. It was created by forgetting yourself. Where have you been chasing instead of standing? Waiting instead of choosing? Each unanswered message, each unreturned effort was not a rejection. It was an invitation to return to your center. Like a tide that retreats only to return stronger, energy pulls back before it stabilizes. Imagine pulling scattered energy back into your chest. Feel solidity. Notice the shift. The breath deepens. The spine supports itself. This is what power feels like without force. Quiet, unapologetic, present. It does not announce itself. It simply occupies space. Here is the unseen turning point. When you stop begging, some people will not follow. They were connected to your availability, not your being. Let them drift. Power is not proven by how many stay. It is revealed by who remains when you stop chasing. Ask yourself now, who am I, without needing approval? Sit with the discomfort of that question. The ego may panic, the heart may tremble, but beneath it is relief. You are no longer negotiating your worth. You are inhabiting it. This is how power returns. Not through control, not through anger, but through withdrawal of misplaced energy. You speak less, but mean more. You move slower, but with intention. You stop begging, and life begins responding differently. When you choose yourself, power does not shout. It settles, it grounds, it becomes unshakable. And from this place, letting go is no longer loss. It is reclamation. 8. Choosing yourself rewrites dynamics. Something subtle begins to happen the moment you choose yourself. No announcements, no confrontations, just a quiet shift. And then you notice it. People respond differently. Conversations change. Distance appears where closeness once lived, and respect appears where it never did. Why do people change when you change? Because energy teaches more than words ever could. You may explain nothing, yet everything rearranges. When you stop abandoning yourself, the world has no choice but to recalibrate, not out of fairness, but out of balance. When you move, life moves with you. This is not metaphor alone, it is lived truth. You were never trapped by people. You were held in place by patterns, and the moment you step out of one, reality shifts to meet you. Think of shifting one stone in a river and changing the current. The water does not argue. It flows differently. When you choose yourself, some relationships soften, others dissolve. Some people rise to meet you, others can no longer reach you. None of this is punishment, it is alignment. Buddhist wisdom teaches that outer conflict mirrors inner division. When you stop dividing yourself, when thought, action, and truth align, the outside world responds. Not instantly, not dramatically, but steadily. The chaos reduces, the noise fades. See yourself standing firmly as the world adjusts around you. Notice how grounding feels in the body. There is less urgency, less explanation. You are no longer reacting, you are responding. This is the power of inner consistency. It creates a field where confusion cannot survive for long. Ask yourself now, what has already shifted since I chose myself? Maybe fewer messages, maybe deeper ones, maybe loneliness at first, maybe relief. All of it is information. None of it is failure. Who stayed and who faded? Those who remained were connected to your essence. Those who left were attached to your availability. This distinction is painful but liberating. It shows you where love was mutual and where it was transactional. Here is the unexpected truth. Choosing yourself does not guarantee comfort. It guarantees clarity, and clarity changes everything. You no longer chase what withdraws. You no longer cling to what resists. You begin to trust the quiet intelligence of life adjusting itself. What is this teaching you right now? Perhaps that you are stronger than you thought. Perhaps that you were carrying dynamics that were never yours to hold. Or perhaps that peace has its own rhythm, and it only appears when you stop interfering with who you are meant to be. When you choose yourself, reality does not fight back. It reorganizes, and in that reordering, you discover something rare, a life that meets you where you stand, not where you beg. 9. You were never hard to love. There is a belief that settles quietly after enough disappointment. It says, I am too much, I am difficult, I am hard to love. And once it takes root, every silence feels like proof. But sit with this question gently. What if the problem was never you? Some spaces simply cannot receive your depth, not because your depth is wrong, but because it asks for presence, honesty, and care. When those are absent, love feels heavy. This is not rejection, it is mismatch. A flower does not blame itself for barren soil. You spent too long trying to soften your colors, mute your needs, and adjust your shape so the ground would accept you. But no amount of self-erasure can make dry land fertile. A lotus cannot bloom in dry land. It requires water, patience, and stillness. In the wrong place, even the most resilient spirit struggles. You were not failing at love. You were surviving in an environment that could not hold you. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that suffering increases when we misidentify the source. You blamed yourself because it felt safer than admitting the truth. That some people, some roles, some spaces were never aligned with who you are becoming. Imagine placing yourself in nourishing soil. Feel growth begin. Notice how the body responds to this image. There is relief, expansion, permission. This is what happens when you stop forcing belonging and allow alignment instead. You do not need to convince the soil. You simply move. Ask yourself now, where am I trying to bloom in the wrong place? Is it a relationship that demands shrinking? A role that dulls your spirit? A version of yourself built to be accepted, not alive? What environment truly honors your nature? Where are curiosity, depth, and stillness welcomed rather than tolerated? These are not fantasies, they are signals pointing you home. Here is the final turning point. When you stop shrinking, the wrong spaces release you naturally. There is no fight, no drama, just separation, and in that separation, dignity returns. You stop begging the ground to change, and instead, you choose where to root. What if you stopped asking, why am I not enough, and started asking, where do I belong? This shift dissolves shame. It restores self-trust. You were never hard to love. You were simply asking the wrong soil to grow you. And the moment you choose yourself, you step into a landscape where your nature is not questioned, but welcomed. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "My self-worth attracts everything." Self-worth is not built, it is remembered. Confidence often feels distant, like something reserved for other people, stronger people, luckier people, more certain people. You look for it in achievements, approval, discipline, even suffering. And still, it slips away. Sit with this question honestly. Why does confidence feel so far away? Because self-worth was never missing. It was buried. Buried under voices that told you who to be, how to behave, what was acceptable to feel. Conditioning did not destroy your worth. It distracted you from it. You were whole before the world spoke. Before comparison. Before correction. Before you learned to measure yourself through reactions and results. Worth was not built through effort. It existed before effort was required. Like dust on a mirror hiding what always reflected, the mind accumulates beliefs. Not enough. Too much. Behind. Unchosen. You mistake these layers for truth, but no amount of dust changes the mirror itself. Buddhist wisdom points gently here. Liberation is not acquisition, it is remembrance. You do not become worthy, you return to what was never broken. The struggle ends not when you prove yourself, but when you stop believing the stories that said you had to. Wipe the mirror slowly. See yourself clearly. Notice what arises when you imagine meeting yourself without judgment. There is no performance required, no fixing, just recognition. This is where calm begins, not in confidence, but in acceptance. Ask yourself now, what stories taught me I was not enough? Were they spoken by tired parents, fearful teachers, unhealed lovers, a hurried world? And more importantly, which of them am I ready to release? You are not betraying anyone by letting go of false narratives. You are ending an old misunderstanding. Who are you beneath them? Not the role, not the defense, not the version shaped to survive. There is a quieter presence underneath, steady, observant, unchanged by praise or rejection. This is the self that remains when everything else falls away. Here is the final turning point. When you remember your worth, you stop chasing proof. You stop borrowing value from outcomes and opinions. You move differently, speak differently, choose differently. This is not arrogance, it is return, a return to truth. And from this place, letting go becomes natural. You no longer cling to what questions you. You no longer stay where you must shrink. Choosing yourself is not an act of building something new. It is an act of remembering what was always there, clear, intact, and quietly waiting for you to come home. 11. When you choose yourself fully, there comes a moment when the questions grow tired, not because they were answered, but because they are no longer needed. You stop asking why others didn't choose you. You stop replaying conversations, reading between silences, searching for hidden meanings, and something else takes their place: peace. So ask gently, what finally ends the search? It ends when loyalty returns home. When you choose yourself fully, the mind no longer needs explanations. The heart no longer negotiates. You are not waiting to be seen, because you are present with yourself. Peace begins when loyalty returns home. This is not dramatic. It is subtle. Like arriving after a long exile and realizing nothing needs to be proven anymore. You simply sit down and rest. Buddhist wisdom speaks of this return again and again. Suffering continues as long as the self is divided. One part chasing love, one part protecting dignity. When they reunite, the struggle dissolves. Not because life becomes easy, but because you stop fighting yourself. Sit with your breath. Feel the quiet relief of no longer chasing. Notice what has changed. The body softens, the jaw unclenches. The future does not demand immediate answers. This is what alignment feels like, not excitement, not certainty, but steadiness. Ask yourself now, what am I no longer willing to tolerate? Not from anger, but from clarity. The moment you choose yourself, tolerance reshapes itself. You no longer endure what costs you peace. You no longer explain what you have already decided. What feels peaceful now? Maybe fewer connections, maybe slower mornings, maybe silence where chaos once lived. Peace often arrives disguised as emptiness before it reveals itself as freedom. Here is the final shift. When you choose yourself fully, you stop trying to be chosen. You stop auditioning. You stop performing worth. You begin living from it. And life responds, not with fireworks, but with coherence. What does self-loyalty look like tomorrow? It may look small. A boundary held, a truth spoken, a rest taken without guilt. These are not minor acts. They are vows. Like arriving after a long exile, you recognize the ground beneath you as yours again. No more wandering, no more pleading, no more waiting. You are here. And in this place, letting go is no longer a loss. It is the final release of a search that was never meant to last. Bonus principle. Letting go is not an ending. Letting go is often mistaken for an ending. The mind frames it as failure, loss, or collapse. But what actually falls away is not life. It is illusion. The illusion that holding tighter would have saved you. The illusion that endurance was the same as love. When you let go, you do not step into emptiness. You step into contact. Contact with reality as it is, not as you hoped it would become. This is why it feels frightening at first. Fantasy dissolves faster than pain. When the hands open, life enters. Clenched hands cannot receive. A guarded heart cannot feel. You were exhausted, not because you cared too much, but because you were gripping what was never meant to be carried. Buddhist wisdom teaches that freedom begins where attachment ends. Not because attachment is wrong, but because it outlives its purpose. You were meant to learn from it, not disappear inside it. Letting go is how the lesson completes itself. Think of a door you've been pushing that was never locked. The moment you stop pushing, it opens. This is the quiet shock of release. Nothing collapses. Nothing breaks. Space simply appears. Sit with this sensation. The space after letting go often feels unfamiliar. The mind rushes to fill it with distractions, memories, doubts. But if you stay still, you'll notice something gentler underneath. Breath without urgency. Presence without effort. Here is the deeper truth most never hear. Letting go does not erase your past. It integrates it. The pain becomes wisdom. The longing becomes discernment. You don't lose who you were. You stop dragging who you outgrew. Freedom is not dramatic. It does not shout. It feels like standing without leaning, like silence that does not demand answers, like waking up and realizing you no longer need to rehearse your worth. Life finally meets you where you stand, not where you chase. Opportunities align differently. Relationships reveal themselves honestly. You are no longer forcing timing, affection, or outcomes. You are available, not desperate. This is the beginning most people miss. When you let go, energy returns, creativity stirs, boundaries strengthen. The future stops feeling heavy because you are no longer carrying the past on your back. Letting go is not an ending. It is the first honest moment of meeting your life as it is. And from this meeting, something real begins, rooted, calm, unforced. You did not lose anything essential. You released what was blocking the way. And now, with open hands, you are finally ready to receive what can stay. Quick summary of principles. Choose yourself above all else. Choosing yourself is self-respect, not selfishness. Abandoning yourself to be loved creates inner conflict. Peace begins when loyalty returns inward. No one can value you more than you value yourself. The pain is not loss, it is withdrawal. Letting go hurts because attachment was dependency. The mind confuses freedom with abandonment. Pain fades when resistance ends. Clarity replaces suffering when you accept reality. The hidden ego behind being too nice. Overgiving often comes from fear of rejection. Niceness can be a strategy to secure worth. True compassion has boundaries. Self-honesty ends people-pleasing. Why people stop respecting you? Respect weakens when boundaries disappear. Neediness erodes value in any relationship. Self-respect teaches others how to treat you. Choosing yourself restores balance. Detachment is not coldness. Detachment removes illusion, not love. You can care deeply without clinging. Peace comes from releasing control. Freedom strengthens authentic connection. Stop explaining yourself to be chosen. Over-explaining signals self-doubt. Truth does not require defense. Silence preserves dignity. Clarity replaces justification. When you stop begging, power returns. Power drains through chasing approval. Stillness restores inner authority. Self-groundedness shifts dynamics naturally. You reclaim energy by withdrawing need. Choosing yourself rewrites dynamics. Internal change creates external shifts. People respond to your self-alignment. Some stay, some leave. Both are necessary. Life reorganizes around self-trust. You were never hard to love. Being unchosen does not mean unworthy. Misalignment is not rejection. You do not need to shrink to belong. Right connections meet you as you are. Self-worth is remembered, not built. Worth is inherent, not earned. Conditioning buried what was always present. Self-awareness restores confidence. You return to what was never lost. When you choose yourself fully, external validation loses its grip. Inner peace replaces constant questioning. Self-loyalty becomes natural. Life feels lighter and clearer. Bonus: letting go is the beginning. Letting go creates space for truth. Endings open the door to alignment. Freedom starts where attachment ends. Peace follows acceptance. Choosing yourself is not an act of separation. It is an act of awakening. The moment you stop begging to be chosen, you stop fighting reality and begin living in truth. Zen teaches that suffering ends not when life changes, but when the mind stops clinging. When you choose yourself, you return to stillness, dignity, and quiet power. As the teaching reminds us, when you let go of who you think you should be, you become who you are. Carry this reflection with you today. Where am I ready to stop seeking permission and start honoring my own presence? If this message resonated, like and share this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Deep Wisdom for more inspiring Buddhist insights on living a peaceful, grounded life.